Rocking and rolling. We have Ced Louie in the building. How you doing today, bro?
Good, man.
First of all, bro, you have a rich history in hip hop. Everybody knows I started the OG series where we're getting everybody who can tell us the exact timeline of what happened in Detroit hip hop. We're trying to go back to like as early as the 1980s. That's as far back as I'm trying to get to right now.
I don't go back that far, but
I know you. No, I'm saying we started with Big Gov.
Okay.
Who was he was the first person to come and do the OG series with us. He started in '85. That's when he started making music. So we're walking down the timeline. I know a lot of people were saying they need you to be on the show because you have a rich history in Detroit music and music in general. I do want to shout out our sponsors for today, the Stacey brand. Shout out my boy Floss a lot for bringing us this hoodie, man. You need to go look into the Stacey brand. I can't tell you why, but you need to go look into it. And once you look into it, you're not going to regret looking into it. Trust me on that. Go check out the Stacey brand. When I was talking to Big Gov, man, I realized something. I realized I fell out of love with watching music because I felt like it become a money marketing scheme after a certain while. Like, you know how everybody has Instagrams, everybody has TikToks.
Yeah.
Everybody has ways of monetizing music more than ever before. And it's like, where did music go? What happened? So you're probably the perfect person to talk to because you can rewind for us and talk to us about your entry into hip hop. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that first, but let's talk about you. Where were you born? Where were you raised, man?
I'm from the east side of Detroit, man.
Okay, cool. Talk about your upbringing in Detroit.
From the east side, like I got into music, like I started the love for music, like from like my grandfather. Like my grandfather was like in the jazz music heavy. My stepfather, he just was like a music fan. He wasn't really like into music like professionally, but he just was like a huge fan. So he had like a vast like vinyl collection. Used to be downstairs listening to Michael Jackson with him. Like actually the first ever concert I went to was the Michael Jackson Band concert at the Palace of Urban Hills.
Yeah.
That was my first concert ever. I was probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like my stepdad was like really into that. Now my real dad, he was like DJ like on some like just for the neighborhood, like, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't like a professional DJ or nothing, but he was like, you know, he know how to get the party going. So
isn't it crazy how Michael Jackson, like we're never gonna be able to see him perform, obviously, right? But literally the most electrifying performer of all time. You got to witness him.
Oh man, no, it's crazy when I really think about it. Like when I talk to people about that, like that was literally my first concert experience was going to see Michael Jackson. Like
it's so crazy.
Yeah.
What was it like though, man?
It was crazy. I mean, it was the Bad tour. I was super Michael Jackson out. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, we was listening in the basement, listening to the vinyls, the videos. I had he had this cassette, this movie thing he had called Moonwalker that he put out. I had that, like, I had all that. So, like, I was Michael Jackson out. So,
sure.
It was a great experience.
Cool. So, your family's heavily invested in music and fans of music?
I mean, fans of music, not heavily invested. Like, because, you know, it's crazy. Like, when I actually, like, decided to make it, like, a career choice, like, nobody really, like, supported it for real. Like, I mean, because they didn't know it was realistic. Like, because being here in Detroit at that time, so this is like, when I decided to do this is like 99, 2000. Like 2000, more 2000, because it was more after I graduated from high school.
Yeah.
We didn't know nothing, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know anybody. I didn't know it was realistic, you know what I'm saying? But I just was like, yo, this is what I love. This is what I want to chase. I'm going to figure it out.
It was that time that you knew you wanted to make music, or were you kind of hiding the fact that you wanted to pursue it before that?
No, I wasn't hiding it. Like, I mean, I was playing football. So in high school, I was playing football. So I ended up getting a scholarship to go play at Tiffin University in Ohio. So I was doing that. You know, I love sports. I love football. But it was just something about music. Like, when I got down to school, I ended up tearing my ACL. So while I was chilling, I was watching 106 & Park. And it was something on there that was so trash. It was a trash video. And I'm like, dog, this shit is garbage, man. Like, we could do better than this. You know what I'm saying? And then that just kind of was like, all right, I'm about to figure this out.
What was your first moments in a studio?
My first moments in the studio, actually, the first, like, really messing with the music was in my dorm room. This was like Fruity Loops had just came out for real. So, you know, I was messing around with Fruity Loops. My homeboy Locke, who I still work with to this day. Like, you know, he does a lot of videography stuff actually, and then he has the clothing brand Perspective, which I got on right now.
Sick.
You know, Locke, he played football. Me, him, and my man Corey, we all played football together. I just was making beats for them. You know what I'm saying? I was making beats for them. And then Corey was from Canton, Ohio. And his people back in Canton, Ohio had a studio. So we would leave from Tiffin and go to Canton. And then my man Quay. So that was literally my first time being in the studio was at Quay House in Canton.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow, so it goes that far back.
Yeah. You know who Stally is?
Stally from
He was signed to MMG for a minute.
Yeah.
Long beard.
Yeah, I know
that's
who you're talking about.
That's one of my real good guys too. I met him in Ohio as well. Like, matter of fact, we can still in the all me, him, Corey, my man Larry from Columbus, Ohio. We all in the group text right now.
Talk about how you progressed that. What was the moment where you realized, okay, like, you know, people are vibing? Were you just making it off the passion out of it in the beginning?
Yeah, just in the passion. Yeah,
and there was.
I didn't even get deep into being a producer. Cause once I started doing that, it's like, all right, cool. We want to try to do it seriously. Like, I wanted to know how it worked. Like, how did the machine, you know, move? So I started doing my research on that.
You mean like the industry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just the business. So I was like, all right, how does the business work? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And once I started looking into that, I discovered Violator Management, which was Chris Lighty, Mona Scott. Everybody know Mona Scott from Love and Hip Hop, but like Mona was like one of the dopest music managers ever. So like when I discovered them, like, and I saw what they were doing, because they like managed LL Cool J, Puffy, Fat Joe, Red Cafe, like all these Big Pun, like all these people that was crazy, Busta Rhymes, Missy Elliott. Like, when I discovered them and what they was doing, I was like, I want to do that.
How do you research what they're doing? Is it just on the internet or something like that? Or
Just research.
Oh,
like,
cool.
reading books for real, because, like, you know, I mean, it was a lot of it was stuff on the internet, but like really just reading books and just like, you know. So I thought that everybody knew music law. I thought everybody that if they was a manager, they knew music law. That wasn't the truth. So I went on this like deep dive of like learning music law, learning like the wording in contracts, what different things were in contracts. And then I found out once I really got into it that most people didn't know none of that shit.
Wow. Talk about your proceedings after that. So like you're learning, you're educating yourself. What's like kind of the first big moment for you of getting involved in it? So
I dropped out of Tiffin because I got suspended from the football team. So I end up when I got suspended, I just was like, I don't even want to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, at that point it was like, you know, I don't see myself going professional in football. And it's like I really wanted to, like my heart was really in the music. So I ended up leaving and coming back to Detroit. So when I came back to Detroit, like I said, I didn't know anybody. So I figured I was like, all right, well, let me try to get an internship at the radio station. So I ended up going down to WJLB. I ended up meeting DJ DDT. He works over at, he engineers and stuff over at Mix Factory.
Okay, cool.
Now, but at the time, you know, DDT worked at JLB. What was the show on Saturday? Man, him and Search and all of them had the show on Saturday night, so on JLB. But I met DDT. DDT let me come down to the station and come kick it with him and all that. Actually, my guy Locke, he let Locke come in there. Locke recorded a freestyle at the radio station. And that's when they told me, like, yo, if you want an internship, you got to be in school. So I'm like, fuck. Like, I dropped out of school. But then I ended up discovering Specs Howard. So I went, enrolled in Specs Howard. And then, when I went to Specs Howard, the door just kind of opened from there. I ended up getting an internship with Gerald McBride. He has this company called Voiceover Productions. He does a lot of commercials. Remember the Mr. Allens, the 29250?
Yeah.
That's Gerald McBride voice.
That's legendary.
But I was interning for Gerald McBride. And it's crazy how I started interning for him. So when I first got to Specs, I seen him walking through the hallway. And he remembered me because me and his daughter went to middle school together. And he remembered me from middle school. And he was like, Cedric, right? He like, yeah. He's like, you go here now? He's like, yeah. He's like, you know, I went here, whatever. He's like, you want an internship? I said, why not? So, yeah, so I started interning with him first. I ended up getting an internship at JLB.
Cool.
And then after that, I started doing street team stuff for Interscope and J Records and Reebok and all that stuff.
What does that mean?
Just remember, you would see the posters all over the city. Like I was out there sniping all over the city. Like that shit was fun. That was fun. I ain't gonna lie.
Just putting up the posters on the wall and advertising and marketing and stuff like that?
Yeah, that was fun. And then, just being around when the artists would come in town, like, we'd move around with the artists and stuff like
cool.
that. But, yeah, the street team shit was fun.
Who'd you get to encounter when you're doing that, when you're working, promoting and stuff?
Jada Kiss. I remember we had Truth Hurts. You remember the artist Truth Hurts? She was signed to Dr. Dre for a minute.
Oh, cool.
Truth Hurts that came to town. This was a little bit after she had left Aftermath, because she had put out this that So Contagious song, and they had got sued and all. It was big. That shit, no, look it up. Like it was like big lawsuit about that song, about the sample that Dre and DJ Quick used in the song.
Okay.
But Truth Hurts had put out her next album independently, and she had came to the city to promote. Me and my homeboy Anthony Bird, we got one of his homegirl mama truck, and we was driving Truth Hurts around town. Like that was dope. Like getting to kick it with her, and just talk shit with her. So she was some real cool people.
So she was signed at the time, and everything was going like crazy, and then that kind of ended for her. But you were in her with her during her prime and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, she was.
What
cool.
were you guys experiencing? Who else were you guys encountering, and like what was the experience like? Man, just walk us through that.
Oh man, I'm trying to think who else I met. I mean, I met a lot of artists just being at the radio station too. LL Cool J, Ludacris, T-Pain, like. Yeah, a lot of people.
This is during the internship, or is this when you're?
No, this was kind of like this started because I ended up actually working at the radio station.
What's the process of getting from an internship to actually working for them?
Okay, so let me tell you, my whole shit was like on some real shit. Like I believe in the universe, right? And that when you put out good energy come back to you, right? So literally everything I've done literally just came to me. So I was interning at Radio 1. So I was there for maybe like 4 months. And the girl who was a board op, she was on maternity leave. And she was coming back. But I guess her husband didn't want her to come back to work or whatever, so she called and quit. And the day she called, right when she called to quit, I was walking past the program director's office, and he got off the phone with her, and he saw me in the hallway. He's like, "Hey, you want a job?" That's how it happened.
What was your official position?
I started off as a board op, so I was just like running like on the AM station. Like I would just run like the shows, the programming on the AM stations on the weekend on like Saturday and Sunday. I like literally work like 10-hour shifts.
Now, relatively speaking, this is mainstream, right? Like you're dealing with the mainstream. You're not. Did you get to go through the underground kind of wave
with the artists?
No. Well, yeah, kind of in Detroit. Like, did you get to go through the underground time before that, or was that during the same time?
No, it was all kind of all this was happening like simultaneously for me. So it was like,
how are you being able to incorporate with the underground at the same time?
Me just going out, just going to the events, going to the showcases. You know what I'm saying? I never got to go to the hip hop shop.
Okay.
That was before me, but they started doing the showcase at Alvin's, which is what's that? Carhartt. You know where the Carhartt store is down there on Cass?
I haven't seen it.
So where the Carhartt store is on Cass, that place where it's at, it used to be this venue called Alvin's.
Okay.
And Contact and them, they had a showcase down there. So like everybody moved from the hip hop shop, and everybody started being at Alvin's. So I used to go to Alvin's like every week. You were
coming there as a fan, or you were also at the same time coming as a kind of looking to see who's got what going on? Yeah. What were you kind of seeing at that time?
Just networking with the artists, just meet. Like I said, it was all about just meeting people at the time.
Like I'm talking about like what artists were you kind of encountering, or even producers or everything? What were you kind of seeing?
You had King Gordy, the Fat Killers, Marv One, and all them. They used to be down there. Miss Corona used to be there.
What year is this roughly around?
It's got to be like 03, 04.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So walk us through watching the underground as simultaneously you're working at the mainstream at the same time. So 1 minute you're seeing Jadakiss, and then 1 minute you're seeing somebody that nobody might know is about to pop off yet.
But the people I would see here was dope, because it was like I was really fans of them, like because they were famous to me, you know what I'm saying? And getting to kick it with them and talk to them, and they cool, they embracing you.
Yeah.
Proof, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Yeah, rest up Proof, man. Like Proof was he was a real one. Like Proof gave me one of the biggest lessons. He's like, I I mean, I know this is stuff that people hear, but he just, basically we were talking about having a plan A and a plan B, right, in life. And he was like, fuck a plan B. He's like, if you want to do this, fuck everything else, just like do it.
Yeah.
Like, and that like stuck with me, and I like just was on it after that. Like, all right, fuck everything. Like, I'm gonna do this, and I don't care what happened. I don't care what I go through. I'm gonna stick to this, and this is what I'm gonna do with my life.
Right. Oh no, yeah, that's part. You have to, especially in the entertainment industry. A lot of people always think there's like, you know, a plan B. It's like if you're not fully invested in it, there is no. It doesn't exist.
No, it don't.
You can't sit here.
You're not gonna get out of it what you want if you're not giving it your all.
Yeah. And even if I remember my friend Kiefer, he runs Stash House Productions. He said it my favorite way. He's like, 100% is just enough to get in the door.
No, for sure.
And it's like you might not even see anything at that 100. You just got in the door though.
No, for
now
sure.
Now you got to put 150 more in to see something could come back from it. Now, when you're meeting Proof, is that kind of that's through the studio, right?
Or no, just like out and about. Like,
okay, cool.
I think the first time I met Proof wasn't even at Alvin's. The first time I met him, the first time I met Proof was at St. Andrews.
Okay.
Because when I was interning at JLB, St. Andrews, we had the Friday night parties at St. Andrews, 3 floors of fun. That shit was incredible. So I met Proof outside of St. Andrews for the very first time I met him. And then I met Proof again through my man Mark Hicks. My man Mark Hicks and Rico Shelton, they were Dirty Management, so they were D12's managers. So I met Mark Hicks doing the street team stuff because Mark Hicks was like a big-time dude with street team stuff. So I ended up getting connected to him. He invited me over to, they had this place, it's called the Dirty Mansion, like in Highland Park. Like, so this is where like D12 be, this is like their management headquarters. This is where they all pull up to and all that. So then I ended up meeting Proof again there. And then after that, my first actual client, well, I'll tell you about that. Sick Notes was my first client. But I used to intern for them, too. I interned for them at the studio.
And he's the producer, I think I read it like with the How Come.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Sick Notes, it was my man Pep and Wit. They did How Come for D12. They did Cry Now for Obie Trice. Proof, and Dogmatic had a CD called Promatic. They produced that entire CD. Yeah, they was like entrenched. Raw Collection. They had to produce a lot of stuff for the group Raw Collection. So I knew who Sick Notes was. Let me tell you how I met Wit.
Yeah.
So I was at Specs. I was skipping class. So, because you know what I'm saying, because we had some days we'll be downstairs in the studio, in the radio studios doing work. And then we had some days we had actual, like, be in the classroom doing book work. So when we was doing book work, it was like boring. So I'm like, I'm gonna go down to the studio and go mess with the other class that's in the studio. So I'm down there skipping class, kicking it with them. So I see Wit walking through. So he had these flyers, like looking for a studio intern. And I saw it, and I saw the Sick Notes logo on it. So, you know, I knew their logo from, like, you know, being around. I knew their logo. So I'm like, you Sick Notes? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm one of the guys. I'm like, what you doing? He's like, I'm looking for an intern for the studio. So, you know, being in the studio, like, I learned how to engineer and all that stuff. So I'm like, well, like, I'm your guy. I like, you ain't even got to put them flyers out. So he looked at me. He took my number and he didn't put the flyers out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just off the faith of meeting you that one time.
Just literally that one time. I told him, because I told him I knew who he was. I was a fan of their stuff. I was running off like different stuff that I knew they did. So that kind of caught him off guard. Like, okay, you kind of know what you're talking about.
It's funny. It's like the same thing you said. Like the energy comes to you. Like everything attracts to you because even at the studio, that right time, right place. Yeah. And now with him, it's the right time, right place.
Yeah, like literally, I was just walking. He was walking through the school. He was about to go put the flyers out like in our like cafeteria where we go for breaks and stuff. And I'm like, nah, you ain't got to put them out. So he didn't. He took my number. I think he ended up calling me like the next day. I went and met with him and Pep at Pep's house. We talked for a minute, and then I ain't hear from him for like 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, I ain't hear from him for like 3 months.
And you're still at the station at the same time?
Yeah, I'm interning at the radio station
still. So you're still interning. Okay, cool.
I'm interning at JLB, so I'm not even over at Radio 1 yet. I was at JLB still at this time.
Oh, okay.
And a couple months later, they end up opening their studio. And they just randomly called me one day. They was like, you still interested? I said, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I pulled up there, and they was like, shit, the intern yours. And then I just was up there recording.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and he's already plugged in with everybody.
Yeah,
so
they had already like with How Come for D12, they had already done that record. It was done. It hadn't come out yet, but they had recorded it, and you know they knew it was coming out and all that. I think they had got their advance and all that stuff already for it. And then it came out, and then it was like it went crazy. The song went crazy.
Yeah. And I used to send that to a lot of people. I used to be like, man, what happened to us?
Yeah.
I used to send that song to people.
Yeah, the song went crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. So you're networked now. You're plugged in everywhere. You're plugged in with the mainstream, and now you're plugged in with a group that's on the rise, or at the time it's pretty much already successful and established at that point. Obviously, Eminem's involved, working with them and everything like that. Kind of continue walking us through the station. How you're simultaneously working with both sides at this point.
I mean, it was crazy. Like no sleep.
24 hours. Right?
Yeah, it was no sleep. I had a kid too. I had my oldest son is 21.
How are you afford to intern? How could you afford? I'm sorry.
Because I was working at Best Buy too.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah, I was going to Specs Hour, interning. Like that's why when people say certain shit to me, like, oh, it's too much, I don't got no sympathy for you, because it's like I did it. So like you can't tell me that you can't do something, because like I literally did it. Like I was going to school, working at Best Buy. I had a 2-year-old. Interning like at the station, interning going to do street team stuff. Like sometimes we get paid for the street team stuff. Like if it was something they had extra money, like we started getting money like at some point. Like once we like really like kind of like filtered out who was like interning. Like some of us that really stuck around, we started making some money. But yeah, like nobody can tell me like you don't got time to do something, because it's like I did it.
Bro, yeah. I always say when somebody has a kid, it's a wrap. Like I don't even work with people who have kids, because I'm like, man, you don't have time for me. Like you're too invested. Yeah. You proved at that moment, like, no, you can do anything. Like
I mean, it's my support system too, though. Like I can't even lie. Like I said, like my mom and them, they didn't understand what I was doing. Like on some like.
Did they get to see it though? Did they get to see glimpses at the time, like while it was happening?
No, not then. Not like later on. Like later on, like when it really started like becoming successful, like they start seeing it then. Like when I started having to travel around and do stuff like that, and they see like, damn, what you traveling for? Where you going? Where for what? Like, so like when that started happening, yeah. But in the beginning, no, they didn't understand nothing. They just like think I'm just in the streets fucking around a little, you know what I'm saying? But again, like they still were very supportive. Like I said, my mom would help me with my son. Even like my son, his mother, like her mom, like his mother, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they were all supportive, so I couldn't have did it without them, I ain't gonna lie.
For sure. So now when you're working with Sicko, is it like you're signed to his state? Like how does that work? Like what are you signed to basically?
So with Signals, no. I just was I literally just was interning at the studio. So I was just an engineer at the studio.
Walk us through some of the artists and the collaborations that you got to work on.
Ray, he had to tell them what they want to hear. Worked with him at the studio. It was an artist named Mayday. She had a big record called B.A.B.Y. back then. That was like, so this like around 2006.
Okay.
She had a big record that was going on. Worked with Obie Trice.
Cool.
Actually, the record Cry Now. So we recorded Cry Now at the studio. We was there all night. Funny story. So Obie was working on his sophomore album. And then unfortunately Obie had got shot. It was an incident on the lodge where Obie got shot on the lodge. So Obie album got delayed and everything, and then, you know, they was waiting for him to get healthy and all that. So when Obie got back to moving around, and then, you know, Interscope and Shady was like, all right, it's time to put the album out. Obie was like, yo, no. He's like, I wanted to, you know, he wanted Sick Notes to be on the album. Because they had did some stuff on this first album, but it ended up being like on like a bonus track, like on the European version of the album or some shit like that. But he's like, no, he's like, y'all gotta make the album. So he came to the studio with like a gallon of Hennessy. And he played us the whole album. And he was like, all right, what am I missing? So we start going through beats and stuff like that. Wid had played the Cry Now beat for him first, and Obie skipped over it. He's like, nah, not that one. So we played like maybe like 4 or 5 other beats. He got to this one beat. He started kind of like coming up with some ideas, but we was like, nah, that ain't it. That ain't the beat. You know what I'm saying? So then we was like, no, go back to that first beat, So we played that first beat for him again, and then he just, like, something just clicked, and then he just started writing the song right there, right on the mic. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't write the song down. Like, he literally just sat in front of the mic, like me and you sitting in front of the mic, and he literally just, like, punched through the entire song like that.
Oh, wow. So punching was, like, kind of relevant at that time?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, so he punched through the entire song. So we were at the studio till, like, maybe, like, 7, 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's crazy. This is the last time we were with Proof too. So that next day, you know, we all leave the studio, we go home, we come back up to the studio at like 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because we were all hyped because the song came out so dope. We like, damn, this song dope as hell. So we came back up to the studio like 3, 4 in the afternoon. Proof come to the studio. So Proof said, man, I heard Obie was in here last night. He told me he did something dope. Can I hear it? So we play it for him. He said, man, put it on the CD for me. So we put it on the CD for him. He left the studio. He went right over to Eminem, played it for Eminem. And then the next day I got a call from Tracy, that's one of M's managers, like, oh, hey, yeah, we need the track outs for that song. Like, and then we mixed it. We came over there, we mixed the song. This was the time I was in the studio with him. We went over there to mix the song. We mixed the song. This is the first day I met Paul Rosenberg too, because Paul was at the studio. We got the song mixed, they got it mastered, and then like the next week we were shooting the video, and it ended up being a single on Obie album.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so fucking crazy, bro.
Yeah, that was like I said, that was the last day because Proof left to go to Australia. After that, he had a tour in Australia. He went to Australia. He came back home. He didn't come back to Detroit right away. He went to I think he went down to Arizona. Because I think he was about to get a crib down in Arizona. Yeah. He went down there for a little bit, then he came back to Detroit. And when he came back to Detroit, that's when he got killed.
Yeah, man. And, you know, developing a relationship with somebody like that and seeing them on the rise and seeing them how involved they were and helping your career out and everything like that, obviously, I know it's probably tough for everybody to go on. I know D12 kind of, like, temporarily disbanded. Like, they tried to make something happen, and then...
I just think, right, you know what I'm saying? Like, so being there, like... Proof was the leader, you know what I'm saying? He was like I wouldn't say leader, he was the glue. Because, you know, everybody played their part in D12, but Proof was like the glue, right?
Man, yeah.
So I think losing him was rough for everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, because they had all been together, like, you know, him and Denon have a long history. Like, all of them, man. Him and Marshall had a long history, so it was like, yeah, it was rough on everybody. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it just was tough mentally. You know what I'm saying?
Even for yourself too. I mean, personally, but also career-wise, it's kind of like I'm sure like did things kind of slow down for you for a second? Did things kind of go on hold for everybody, or like did you still feel like okay, I still like emotions still kind of happening, even though everybody's kind of taking a second right now?
No, I don't think stuff slowed down. Cause for me personally, right. So this is another thing. Like I said, there's so much information. So my man Lenny S. So his name Kodak Lens on Instagram. So he managed DJ Khaled.
Oh, cool.
So that's like one of my mentors too. So like during that whole early process when I was interning at the station and doing the street team stuff, one of the guys that I was doing street team stuff with, he was a rapper. My man Anthony Bird. So he was in this group called the Rat Pack. So they had a manager in New York. This guy named Light. Light, you know, Light, shout out to Light, man. Light was real street dude, like trying to change his life, you know what I'm saying? But he was from the streets. So Light was their manager. Light and Lenny S was real cool. They actually, you know what's crazy? Lenny and Light really had like the first podcast. No, for real. No, I swear to God.
In history?
No, for real. Like this is back in MySpace. They had a show that they would film and they would put it on MySpace. They filmed it in like Manhattan. They would like do like a talk show, like they would interview the artists, and then at the end the artists would perform. And they filmed it, and it used to be on MySpace. Like,
cool.
I don't remember anybody doing it before that. You know what I'm saying? So
for sure.
Like so Lenny like really took me under his wing. So like he had opened up that whole New York avenue to me. Like I used to catch the Greyhound and just go out there to go kick it with Lenny. Like when he was at when Jay-Z became the president of Def Jam, Lenny came back, because Lenny was part of the original Rockefeller. So, when Rockefeller, when they sold Rockefeller, everybody kind of went their separate ways.
Yeah.
Lenny had went to Virgin Records for a minute. And that's when I met him, he was working at Virgin. So then when Jay-Z became president of Def Jam, Jay-Z brought him to be an A&R at Def Jam.
Yeah.
So like I said, I would just go out there to New York and just sit in his office in Def Jam with him.
Wow.
And he would just introduce me to everybody. He'd be like, yo, this my man Cedric from Detroit. Y'all should know him. And I'm like 21, 22 at the time. I ain't really had shit going on, but he made me seem important to everybody that he introduced me to. And that's literally how I built my, that's how I built really my network. You know what I'm saying? That really was important part of my career was building that network of people in New York. So yeah, that played a big part of my career. Actually, Lenny is how I ended up becoming Signal's manager too. Because when I told you I was interning for him at the studio, so the manager that they had before that, the dude ended up leaving the company that was their manager. So they had a thing. It's a thing in your contract that you can have called a key man clause. So when their manager left the company, they were able to leave the company. They didn't have to stay at the company because the person that they came there to work with, he was gone. They were free to be able to go find other representation. So I'm like, shit, I know Lenny S. I'm like, shit, we can go meet with him. So Lenny told me he'd take the meeting with the guys. We go out to New York to go meet with Lenny. So we sitting in there. Like I said, Lenny had just started working back at Def Jam. So he said, I'm busy. I can't. He had just signed Fab to Def Jam. He was... Ghostface had just signed to Def Jam. I think he was working on a Neo album. It was a lot. He had a bunch of shit going on. He's like, man, I'm just too busy with this A&R stuff that I'm doing over here now. I don't got time to manage no producers right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking damn, we came out here for nothing. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm like, could you refer us to anybody? And he just looked at me. He was like, shit, why don't you do it? And then the guys looked at me, and they said, all right. So I literally went from being their intern to becoming a manager, like that.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something about you when people meet you, I'm sure, especially at that time, was just magnetic, right? Where you had an energy and you had a kind of aura about you that made people just want to be around you or have you be a part of whatever they're doing.
I guess. I didn't see it then. But like I said, when you look back at it,
you were sitting with legends.
Yeah.
Even sitting with Paul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I always know something that you can't be in a room that you're not supposed to be in.
No, for sure.
It doesn't ever happen.
No,
really,
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Talk about we kind of skipped on that a little bit. Talk about your experiences with Paul and Eminem. What was it like working with them?
Actually, Paul, shout out to Paul. Paul's helped me a lot over the course of my career, for real. Because like I say, he met me then. That was at the beginning of my management career, and he kind of just followed me the entire time. I think the first thing Paul did that really helped me is Boldy James. So I still work with Boldy James to this day. But back then when me and Boldy first started working together, we were working with a lawyer here, and it was cool. You know what I'm saying? But I felt like we needed somebody that was in the mix at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I went to Paul and was like, yo, I've been negotiating with your lawyer, when we doing all these tracks for Shady, you know what I'm saying, with Signals. So I'm like, you got your lawyer, Lisa. I'm like, can you introduce me to her? Because I was like, I want to work with her. I want her to work with Boldy for me. So Paul put in a real good word with Lisa for me.
Wow.
And Lisa actually ended up negotiating. When we Boldy signed the mass appeal to Nas, Lisa ended up being our lawyer that represented us when we did that deal.
Oh, very cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Boldy, man. He's done some work with my friends up in Big Squad, man. He's
Okay.
Still showing love. Still working here in the underground and building himself at the same time. So roughly at that time, with Paul doing that, that's roughly the same time. Or was that kind of fast forwarded?
That was fast forward. That was probably 2011.
Okay. I'm sure people obviously want to hear about your experience with Eminem. Obviously, legendary.
It was cool. It was cool, real cool dude. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the first time I met him, like Signos had been around them a lot, you know what I'm saying, prior to me even being around them. But he was a real cool dude. Like the experience of working with him, he was cool, man. They was fair. They compensated us more than fairly, you know what I'm saying, when we were working with them.
Very cool.
You know, they showed nothing but love. Like, so it was a really dope experience.
Yeah, I mean, you're working with like literally the people who have accomplished the most in the history of hip hop, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, you know, again, you being at those places at that time of your life, how young were you at that time?
I was in my mid-20s. So it
Yeah.
was like, so around that time when I met him, I was probably like 23, 24. But it was crazy. Like, I knew how big Eminem was, right? But I didn't know to afterwards really how big it was. Because, like, when I started going out and doing other stuff, they like, shit, you been around Eminem? And, like, people couldn't believe that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, damn, like, this shit was really, like, the biggest shit in the world.
You probably have more awareness about the people who like D12 and Eminem and everything like that, and Detroit right now, and a lot of people are reaching out like wanting to work with him and wanting to collaborate with him. And do you, seeing from the underground and seeing the mainstream, do you see why it's a possibility of why mainstream artists aren't really like working with the underground at this moment right now? Do you see why people might be complaining about it to any degree?
Okay, so like specifically, like, you know what I'm saying, like, I know, you know, Vezo had stuff to say about, you know, M, or like even Sada. Like, me and Sada didn't even had these conversations, like, you know what I'm saying, like, with one another about it. The thing with M is, I think M was so big that he just was, he wasn't removed from the, he was removed. He was just too big. He couldn't move around willy-nilly, like, you know what I'm saying? Because he's like, huge. Like, he got like his security guard live with him. You know what I'm saying? Like 24/7. Like, he that big. Like, your daughter went to school. I think she had to like be under a fake name to even like live in peace. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like M was that big. So I think really with Proof dying, man, I think that was the disconnect, man. Because Proof was the one that was really moving around. He was in the streets. Like, people knew him, and he was like the connection from the streets to Eminem, right? He was the one, you know, he would like make sure he was hip to certain things. Bizarre, I ain't gonna lie. Bizarre was make sure it was hip to a lot of stuff too. Like, but I think when Proof died, man, it just like that disconnect of not really having that avenue of somebody that was really around the people all the time and was also around him. It wasn't nobody there to like bridge that gap. So I think that was like, that's when that disconnect happened.
And I feel like people forget sometimes that like the relationships that you have are irreplaceable even when it comes to those connections, right? Because you can't just be like, oh, let me just go find somebody else who's connected to the streets. No, like, you grew up with that person. You rocked the streets with that person, rocked the clubs with that person. You're not going to just go like, oh, let me just find out who else knows these people and stuff like that.
And then you got to also remember, like, M a person, right? So M was dealing with substance abuse.
Yeah, right.
And that was a serious thing that he was going through. You know what I'm saying? Like, dealing with that. And like during that time, like, you got like Paul, like, that's why I commend Paul, right? Paul was able to hold the ship together while M was going through that. So it just was a lot. It was a lot of things. Like I said, I just think that like that bridge between him and the younger generation, it was missing, you know what I'm saying? So I think like just over time, and then people started getting on without the Shady Records affiliation, and then it just, you know, the gap just got wider and wider.
Right. And, you know, before we came on, we kind of talked about how, you know, you're one of the only people that probably got to acquaint yourself to get close to Eminem that's still a part of the scene and whatnot. Because some artists are saying that they never seen him or spoke to him. But it's like, do you feel like if you're doing things the right way, you end up in those situations? Or is it just like what's preferable to the artist and that cat label that's how you end up working with them?
I think that played a part into it too, right? I think in the beginning when we first started having like our renaissance, we didn't have a lot of people who knew how to handle business, right?
Yeah.
So I think that play a part in it too, like, cause when you are at a certain level, certain conversations you don't even want to have. Like, if you know, like, I'm not gonna have a productive conversation with this person because they don't understand whatever it is that's going on. You're not gonna have it, because I find myself doing that. Like, if I know somebody ain't gonna comprehend what I'm talking about, like, I kind of really just avoid even having the conversation.
Right.
But I try to change. Like, I try to change that about myself, though, right? Like, that's why I started doing like the consulting things that I do, because I understood, like, the information that I have and the knowledge I have, I took it for granted because, you know, like I said, I spent all this time acquiring all this information, and I took it for granted like everybody know it and everybody don't know this information. So it's my job, because I had, like I said, I had people like Lenny S., I had people like Mark Hicks, people like Paul Rosenberg, people like MC Search, like all these people that passed down their knowledge to me, and they helped me go to another level. It's my job now to pass that information down to the next generation and to educate them and help them, because you know, they'll take that information and they'll run with it. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, and I've seen that since when I started doing the consulting. That's what really kind of drove me to keep doing it, because I saw like people that I would talk to and kick it with and give this information to, they would really go do something with it.
Right. I can see it kind of like while you were in the midst of things happening, it's kind of like if you're on the basketball court and you're killing it, and then some newbies come in that barely know the game. It's like, I don't even want to waste my time playing with you, because I'm doing shit right now.
Yeah.
But now that you have time to sit back and look back, now you have time to be like, okay, I can reach down to you now and teach you how the game, teach you how things
absolutely.
go. So leading from that point where you know, you're working with Paul and you're moving forward from that, I mean, we can move forward from that point and kind of talk about what your career was proceeding at that time. Like, what was the next big moves for you?
Like I said, I think the next biggest thing that happened for me is when Boldy, we did the album with Alchemist, my first chemistry set. That was like that was a crazy moment, like to meet Alchemist, you know what I'm saying?
Bro, that's insane. Yeah, it's literally insane.
Like, we flew to we were here first, because, you know, Boldy's cousin is Chuck English from the Cool Kids. So Chuck had came to Detroit. They were working on this project called The Rebirth of Detroit. Miss Yancey, Jay Dilla's mom, was working on this project called Rebirth of Detroit. So Boldy and Chuck had did a song on that project. So when we were in the studio working on that, Chuck was like, yeah, you know, Alchemist wants to work with Boldy. Y'all need to get to L.A. So I'm like, all right. So I told Boldy, like, yo, Chuck said we need to get to L.A. So, like, the next week, Boldy like, shit, I bought my flight. What's up? I'm like, all right, shit, I'm about to buy my flight. So Boldy go out there, I get out there. We pull up to L.A. We pull up to Al crib. I think we had left. We didn't stay there right away. We, like, left, and Chuck had to go, like, DJ something on the radio, like this underground radio show in downtown L.A. So we went to go do that first. Then we came back to Al crib, and him and Action Bronson were in there working.
Wow,
they were working on the project Rare Chandeliers. They were working on that. I think it was like the tail end of that project. So Action ended up leaving the studio. Al brought us into the studio. He pulled up this beat and was like, he asked Boldy, like, yo, you like this beat? Boldy like, hell yeah, I can write to it. So Al just left me and Boldy in there. And then we recorded the song. And it ended up being the first song on the CD Bowl. And then after that, the next day we came back to the studio. The Action and Auden was in there playing the song. Him and Action ended up doing the song together. And then, it started spiraling from there. You know what I'm saying?
Very cool, man. Now, we're at this time, like, is it, as far as seeing money and stuff like that, is it still relevant? Like, is it kind of coming through? Are you feeling comfortable? Or are you still kind of like on the struggle end of it with the music?
I mean, I wasn't like well off, but I was making some money because like I said, when we were doing the stuff for Shady Records, we made some good money off of that. Shit, I still get royalty checks from that.
That's fire.
Yeah, yeah, I still get royalty checks.
So you're comfortable moving though, like you're comfortable, like, okay, we're gonna go do. We don't know the outcome of what's gonna happen now, but we're invested.
we was good. We was figuring it out. We was good.
That's cool, man.
We hustlers, bro. So it's like, we're going to always be straight no matter where we at.
Well, I have so many artists that come on and they're always just questioning, like, where's the money? Like, we're doing everything. Like, where's the freaking money? You know what I'm saying? They don't even feel comfortable branching out, really.
But that's the part of not knowing the business. So if you don't understand the business, you don't understand how to create the revenue streams or what revenue streams there are. So it's like, you have to have an understanding of what it is you're doing. A lot of people just jump into this and they just want to make music or they just want to be famous. You know what I'm saying? They're not really taking the time to understand what's happening for real.
Yeah.
And like right now, man, this shit is like the best it's ever been. You know what I'm saying? The ability that you can have a laptop, you could record a song, you could take that song, and then you could go directly to the consumer with that song, and you can make money from it. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's $10 or $1,000, like you can make money from your music. So it's like you just got to be consistent and just like I said, understand like where the revenue streams is coming from.
Yeah, a lot of people are super, super talented, right? But they don't know the business end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of extinguishes you and kind of demotivates you when you're not seeing a return on everything that you're putting in. But you had the capability. You were learning about the stuff throughout the time. Plus, you were getting game from everybody around you.
Absolutely.
So you were pretty much just soaking game the whole time you're walking through the entertainment.
I'm still
scene.
soaking game right now to this day.
For sure. But at that time, it was extremely critical because I'm sure like you're taking leaps of faith to some degree, but you know how to make money off this. You know how to make it work at the end of the day.
Yes.
Now I know you have history with Helluva too, and Helluva obviously made a huge name for himself in the city.
Yeah.
One of the most relevant producers in Detroit. Now talk about your history with Helluva.
So I first met Helluva, this is probably around 2006 as well. Stretch Money, when Stretch Money was coming out. So he had did the song Take Money to Make Money with Stretch Money. And then he had the Stretch Money had the album of the same name. Helluva produced half the album and Signos produced the other half of the album. So that was like my first introduction to like to Helluva. We wasn't really like cool. We just knew each other in passing for real for a long time. And then we got a mutual friend that's like really good friends to both of us. And then he kind of like bridged the gap between me and him and kind of like start putting us together and just like, yo, y'all need to talk. Y'all need to know each other. Y'all need to do more together. And like he kind of pushed that agenda for us to like really like do some work together.
What did you guys end up collaborating on?
I think the first thing we actually, when I started working with Nisha Nashay,
Yes.
I was A&R for Nisha Nashay. This is right after On the Cloud came out. And this is prior to us doing the deal with Rock Nation. So when we did the deal with Rock Nation, because, Lenny S is the one who ended up signing her.
Yeah.
While we were, like, putting together, like, her EP and stuff, that's when me and him really got close because I had to talk to him all the time, like, as far as, like, getting the paperwork together and, making sure he getting paid and all that stuff. So, like, that's when me and him started talking, like, a whole lot. So then a little bit after that, he had moved to Atlanta for a minute. Then when he came back, First Day Out, he ended up doing First Day Out. First Day Out took off or whatever. So after First Day Out blew up, Big Sean actually offered Helluva a publishing deal. So when that happened, our friend Mike had came to me, was like, yo, we got this offer from Sean. He's like, I want your help. Can you, help us like negotiate the deal or whatever? So me, him, and Helluva sat down, had a meeting, was like, yo, we gonna work together to negotiate this deal, which we didn't end up doing that deal. Like, so I end up like, reaching out to other people that I knew. We ended up doing a deal with my man Ryan Press over at Warner Chapel.
Yeah.
And that was like the first thing that me and Helluva did together. And then after that, he was like, man, you might as well just be my manager. So, and then we just been rocking out. So that was like about 5-6 years ago.
And right now you're currently his manager?
Correct.
I didn't even know Helluva had a manager. That's incredible.
I mean,
I thought he was a manager.
No, so this is the thing with me. This is how me and Helluva relationship works, right?
Yeah.
We actually had arguments about this. So I told him, like, everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to have the relationships with you. So as opposed to me sending some beats off to an A&R, it's better if he develops the relationships with the artist. He's sending beats to the artist directly. And then I'm like, you set it up, I knock it down. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So he'll get with a lot of the artists. They'll have that conversation. He get in the studio with them or send them beats. They make the records. And then when it's time to do the business, they come see me.
It's a perfect partnership, man.
Yeah.
Perfect partnership.
And we got it down like we on our like Stockton and Malone shit right now.
When you were coming up with him, coming up simultaneously with Helluva at the same time, you guys are watching the Detroit scene emerge more so, right? Team East Side, talking about Doughboys Cash Out and stuff like that. And part of what we're trying to do is kind of help the timeline a little bit of Detroit music. Can you walk us through the timeline of that era and also kind of incorporate it with what you were doing at the same time?
Okay, so the Doughboys, I remember they started coming up because my little brother was in high school.
Yeah.
And my little brother played basketball, and I was like very involved in my little brother's high school career.
Yeah.
So like I was around him and all his friends. So that's how I actually got up on the Doughboys, was from my brother and his friends, because they'd get in the car and they had the CDs and they'd start playing this shit in my car. I'm like, dog, what the fuck is this, man? You know what I'm saying?
Did you fuck with it?
It was at first I didn't at first, right? Because it was like, who is these dudes that sound like the Street Lords and sound like, you know, because they had that sound. Like I think they brought that sound back that the Street Lords and the East Side Cheddar Boys and all them had. So to hear them years later, to hear somebody sound like that, it threw me off a little bit. But like I said, they would play it. I ain't make them stop playing it. So every time they would get in the car, they just kept playing it, and it was like, all right, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. So
it was an acquired taste kind of thing.
Yeah, but the thing for me that was dope was I kept seeing them. They kept being active. They kept pressing. It wasn't like a thing that came and went. They was like really on it, and they was young. You know what I'm saying? I think they might have even been in high school at the time, or just getting out of high school. So
the interesting thing from your perspective, though, is like you're dealing with the mainstream, like you're dealing with Hollywood, basically, the Hollywood of music, right? Yeah. So when you're watching the underground, this is like the reason you're my favorite person to talk to right now is because if you're a part of the mainstream at the highest level, what's your perspective on the underground at the time? Is that like, oh, that's some cool shit that's happening, or is that like, oh, let's see what happens with this?
No, I'm from Detroit, bro.
For sure.
At the end of the day, so like, you know what's crazy for me now is it was a point in time when I used to tell the people in the industry that I was around about Detroit stuff, and they would tell me like, yo, say, bring us something else. Quit bringing us all this Detroit shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, they was kind of like shunning it, you know what I'm saying? And it was kind of frustrating because it's like, yo, we got some shit going on. We got some talent, even on the other side, like, you know what I'm saying? Because you got the Doughboy side of things, but then you got like the Black Milks and the Fat Cats, the Fat Killers, like that whole side of music too, you know what I'm saying? Like, so Detroit has always had like rich music history like the entire time. So it was like frustrating for them to like, they didn't see it, like, you know what I'm saying? And then now, where we at now, my phone don't stop ringing with people trying to figure out how do I get to meet to this person, or do you know this person said? It's like, yeah, I know everybody.
So you think they misfired, right? Like they missed that chance of making Doughboys and everybody that was popping off at that time, like get him to the mainstream, or do you think that the mainstream wouldn't have accepted that type of music at the time?
I don't think they was ready, and I also think that we had to groom ourselves too, right? Because like over time, like we got better. Like we did never change our sound. We just refined the sound, and the sound got better and better and better. But it's still the base of what it was always. I think everybody just started taking their craft more seriously, and just putting more time into the craft, and then we just got better over time. But it was always the same thing. I think it was in its infancy stage at that time.
For sure. Continue walking us through you progressing your career while maintaining and watching the streets at the same time.
Okay, so like around the time the Doughboys was popping, and then so the Doughboys was popping, and then Team Eastside started popping, which, you know, made me happy being from the East Side. So that was dope to see though. And I've been a fan of like Peasy and Babyface Ray, you know, I guess Vezo, the Green Guys, him and Webo, like Webo like family for real. So like seeing everything they was doing in GT, and even the studio over on DeQuinder, my man Cook had the studio over on DeQuinder where everybody used to be
at. The red building?
Yeah, right there on DeQuinder and 7 Mile.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? So like all these things was going on. So it was just like dope to watch.
Where are you at in your career at the same time? You're dealing with the mainstream, right? So what
No, not really. At this time, I'm like, it was me and Boldy working heavy at this time.
Okay.
So, you know, we on our underground shit for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, we was really like the underdogs for real. I think like we kind of felt under, like I know personally, we felt a little underappreciated, right? Because we were doing all this dope shit, but I don't think we were getting recognized because like the sound of music we were making didn't fit in with what Team Eastside and the Doughboys was doing. So it's like we were like, I think the people who made music understood what we was doing, but I don't think we was getting the appreciation that we thought that we should get from everybody. But I mean, we was doing dope shit too. Like, you know, like Boldy, I had Boldy for the Birds. Like, he's one out of the new generation of guys. We was like the first people to be on MTV. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
Yeah, like he had a video for the Birds, so it was on MTV Jams. That and then that's why me and Chanel go way back too. Cause damn, I can't remember the name of the video that Vezo had, but me and Chanel worked together, and one of Vezo videos got on MTV Jams as well. And that was a collaboration that me and Chanel did together.
Where do you go after the MTV? What's happening for you guys after getting placed on that major platform?
So then we at the same time when that happened, we end up working on the Alchemist album.
Yeah.
We end up doing a deal with Decon, which was Decon was Mass Appeal. Like Decon ended up restructuring and becoming Mass Appeal. So we did the deal with Decon. We did a 1-album deal with Decon for the Alchemist album. We put the Alchemist album out, and then we end up, when they restructured to Mass Appeal, we end up re-signing with Mass Appeal because now Nas was involved and stuff like that. But
Damn.
yeah, like so all that was happening. Like,
Did you get to have communication with Nas at all?
yeah,
What?
yeah.
Man.
Smoked a blunt with Nas.
Nah, man. All right, what's
Hey,
up, man?
that was I ain't gonna lie. The first time I ever smoked a blunt with Nas, that was like, damn, like this is crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Like to like be this kid. I remember in high school, me and my friends, like 3 of my best friends got murdered.
Oh.
Yeah, so like remember riding around with them and my friend Tony and his red Grand Prix playing like I Am. You know what I'm saying? And listening to that. To like, damn, I'm like smoking a blunt with this dude. Like,
Man.
shit was crazy.
What's the kind of conversations you guys are having?
I mean, he just was kicking it, just about just elevation for real. You know what I'm saying? Like business, because this is around that time. That's when he really started getting into the venture capital stuff. And not so much with him all the way, but like his manager Anthony, like me and Anthony have a lot of dope ass conversations.
Yeah.
Nas was like, he just a chill dude, you know what I'm saying?
A lot of people when they come on, they still consider him like the greatest lyricist of all time, if not one of the best hip hop
I mean,
artists.
he one of them.
Why do people always say Nas is number one when it comes to lyricism? Like they always talk like most of the top charts have him at the number one.
I mean, Nas up there. I mean, it's subjective.
Well, what's your like top 5? Just lyricists.
My top 5.
Yeah, lyricists, or just you know what? Just go with hip hop. Top 5 artists of all time on your end.
Damn. Jay-Z.
Cool.
Biggie. Nas. Andre 3000.
Andre 3000. Yeah.
That's 4.
That's different. I like that.
You pretty much named like a.
I got one more. Damn. Guess you gotta put M up there.
Respect, man. First person to put M on the
You gotta
top.
put M up there. Man, look, man. M as a lyricist, man. Like, see, this the thing, right? Because M is an underground MC, right? But his evolution to make hit records, bro. Like, and that's another thing, right? That's what's gonna keep Detroit. Like, I know we making a lot of dope ass music now, but like, we got the light and everything is on us. We gotta make hit records. That's why Atlanta had the run it had. They was making hit records. So like, I learned a lot from watching, like being around them, and how to make hit records and how to really take care of the music and pay attention to the detail of the music. Like, you can't take that from him. Like, M made smashes. Like, Lose Yourself is like, come on.
To this day. To this day.
How many records bigger than that?
To this day, man.
Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, he's number one streaming in the. I mean, 52 billion. I think last I saw, he was number one on all platforms. It's like, goddamn, dude, the guy's been rapping for how long and he's still number one.
I think you know what I think like. So this is a conversation that we be having. Like with M, I think some people, like especially in the hood, like the shit he talk about, they can't relate to it, right? Mm-hmm. They like most of us are close with our mothers, so they can't relate to that relationship with their mother, right? So like they can't connect to that. So I think that's what it is. It's like it's just the content that M was talking about. I think some people in the hood couldn't relate to it. It's not that it's not good or that he not a good rapper. It just I don't relate to that. So I'm not gonna be riding around playing that. You know what I'm saying? But the thing, right, like going to the shows and going to Comerica Park and seeing 60,000 people singing this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit was mind blowing. Like, dog, this is crazy. Like,
right on.
It's like a different level. Or even with Nas, right? So when we signed the Mass Appeal, this was around the time that they were doing the 20th anniversary of Illmatic. So we were moving around with him to a couple different events that he was doing to celebrate the 20th anniversary. I remember we were at like Google or some shit like that, right? He did like this Q&A at Google. And you got all these like nerdy white kids lined up with Illmatic vinyls and Illmatic CDs and cassettes. And they were treating this shit like it was a brand new CD. Like that's how the energy was in there. It was like you would think this dude just released a brand new album. Like this album is literally 20 years old, man. And it still got people like feeling like that. Like that's the kind of music I want to make. Like that 20 years from now, like people still gonna resonate with the music. You know what I'm saying?
Like timeless classics.
Yeah, like I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's cool to make stuff in the moment. You're gonna make stuff in the moment because you know when you live it, you in the moment. So you're gonna make some stuff. But overall, it's like the goal is to be able to make music that is gonna outlive you.
Yeah, there's bands and artists from 80 years ago. People still bump into.
You know who my favorite Detroit artist is?
Let me guess, man.
Take one guess.
Is he underground or is he main right now?
I mean, he not underground to me. I mean,
Sada?
No, Street Lord Wine.
Okay, all right, bet.
Like his music to me, it like spoke to me. Like when I heard, like you could hear how authentic what he was saying. Like the other day, like I was riding. Shout out to my little sister Casey here. So Casey like 21, right? We in the car. And she banging So Far Gone, and it's like, damn, like that record is like shit. At this point, that record probably like 10, 12, almost 15 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then I hopped in the car with somebody else that was like in their 20s, and then they was playing So Far Gone. So it was like that's the shit that like I love, like that he made a record that still stand the test of time today.
Man. Yeah, timeless music. There's only so many people who can make a song that lasts forever. So many artists that can make a song that lasts forever. Did you feel like you've done that for yourself? Do you feel like you've made a song that you know in 30 or 40, 50 years from now people are still going to be talking about?
Have I made that song? I think Helluva and Nisha made What I'ma Go Crazy. I think that record gonna stand the test of time. On the Cloud too, but I didn't I can't take credit for On the Cloud. I wasn't around like you know that you know Floss and Nisha and Helluva, they was in the studio for that. But like when we did I'ma Go Crazy, I was around for that. Like and that record I think she just performed at the Lakia concert a month and a half ago. Yeah. And when she came out in the energy in the room when she performed that record, it's like it was a brand new record.
Oh, she's meant to be a superstar, bro. Yeah, she's gonna be, if she, you know, keep the foot on the pedal, it's gonna happen.
No, for sure. So so that's one record that's like I think lasts forever. Boldy got some record. What's my favorite Boldy record? I know it's crazy. I think right now his my favorite record from him right now is his record called Straight and Tall on this new album he just put out. I think that's one of my records. And he got this other record on our second mixtape that we did that came out in like 2012. It's called Last 2 Days.
Yeah.
And he got another record called Go Fish that was on that same CD.
Yeah.
I think them records is like, them records never gonna get old.
What are you most invested in right now at this moment?
Always music.
What part of it though? Like, is managing the key goal right now, or what part of it are you really?
Well, I think so. For me, it's crazy. I just had this conversation earlier today. I think the clients that I have right now, those are the clients I'm gonna have like on the management end. I think the next evolution for me is like actually putting the records out more on the label side and building that, because it's like I understand it more now. Like I don't like to do nothing if I don't understand it, and I've had the opportunity to like do some like A&R consulting jobs and like be around certain things and see certain things, and just like I said, absorb the game. So I think for me, that's the next evolution, like in terms of music. Also like movies, because you know, one of my clients, Kevo Hendricks, he's an actor. He's been in a few big movies.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Nisha has gotten deeper into the acting thing.
Yes.
And we have some like actual like film projects that's on the way. And me and Helluva got like some film stuff that we got in the works too.
I know. So movies is breaking out in Detroit now. So obviously, yeah, like being a part of that right now is a hot thing, and especially when you got the talent. I know Nisha's going to school for it too, like taking classes.
Yeah, she's taking acting classes. Yeah, she's taking acting classes. So yeah, that. But like TV and film, even clothing, right? So like my dude Locke, he got the clothing line Perspective. So like moving into that, just expanding. You know what I'm saying? Like creating products, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I think creating the product that, that's how you just expand. It's just a natural evolution.
For sure.
But music always gonna be first. Like, I love music. Like, I literally get up every day and I love what I do.
From, like I said earlier, having you on is so important to me because somebody who's seen both sides in the mainstream and the underground simultaneously, being involved in both of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, who better to ask questions to understand what's going on? And do you want to break into mainstream if you're an underground artist? Do you want to stay independent? What does it take to get to that level of being a mainstream artist? And kind of looking at both sides of it for Detroit music right now, what do you think is the best route to go in right now?
I mean, it just depends on the artist. Like, I don't think either route is wrong, right? It's just you have to identify what you want out of it, where you want to go with it, and then that's how you determine what you want to do or what you go after. So it's like, I don't think either way is wrong. Now, I mean, I think people got to understand being an independent artist requires a lot of work. So, but I'm always for the work. So if you're willing to put in the work to be independent, but like I said, you need to understand the business. Like, when I think a lot of people throw around the term loosely, like, I own my masters. Like, yeah, but what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the responsibility of owning the masters? Like, what happens after you're gone? Who are you entrusting these to take care of them? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you look at somebody like Prince and his estate and all the mess that they went through when he passed. Like, who's taking care of all this stuff? Because you are the have sole responsibility. If you're the owner of this and you're in charge of when people come to license this stuff, if people want to reissue the music or whatever, like, you have to understand, like, what the responsibility is of owning a master. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, man. For sure. No, because a lot of people are coming on social media. A lot of artists are coming on social media that have worked with major labels and whatnot and been on both sides of it, and they're complaining about almost everything. They're complaining about the contracts, who owns their music, not being able to release music. So there's like all these things. If you come in ignorant, you're gonna leave probably empty-handed.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like, there are pros and cons to being on a major label, right? When you first sign, the deal probably is gonna be shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna be in your favor. Like, especially like if it was early in your career and you don't have any leverage. And they come in and they spending all this money to invest into you and build your brand and all that. Yeah, the terms are not gonna be favorable. But one thing I learned, like, if you do understand what you're doing and you do have success, they always are willing to renegotiate.
Man, beautifully freaking said.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's been awesome having you on. I'm definitely gonna, if you're willing to come back on again in a couple months, man, or
No, for sure.
not even a month from now, because I know we have so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll make it like a 2-parter for your you to get deeper in the scene with us and talk more about it. Is there anything you want to shout out before we sign off?
No, just, I mean, shout out to you, bro.
Oh, sure.
You know what's crazy, right? This is real talk. So I've had conversations, right, where people like question your motive, right? And how I look at it is I've watched you really work to build what you're doing. So like the work you've put in to build it is like, nah, he really loved this shit. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to shout you out for like really putting in the work. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate
like,
that, man.
No, for real. No, for real. You put in work to build your platform. So just really just keep pressing, man, and keep, you know, we need this in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully you inspire the next person to create a platform. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's how we going to keep this thing going, is like by inspiring everybody and teaching and passing it on. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll encourage the next great podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. For sure. No, I definitely appreciate that, man. I'm just trying to do what's necessary.
No, for sure.
And I feel like it is. I think people being able to express themselves with no agendas and no, like, critical questions and, like, trying to, like, you know, get clickbaity shit from people. I think that's a necessity right now for every artist to be able to come speak their truth of who they are and what their motive is in the industry. So I appreciate you saying that, too.
No, for sure.
Man, it's been awesome having you on again, man. Tell everybody how they can find you on social media real quick.
You can find me on Instagram at Hands Up Management. That's HANDZUPMGMT. Hit me up. Don't be afraid. You know, I'll talk back.
For sure. Appreciate you being a part of this. We're at Parallel Sound Studio, High Low Visuals, and shooting these productions. We're out. Peace.